So there's a lot of work around the rules that are learned on the playground are the same rules we bring into the workplace. And boys do more scorekeeping, play more scorekeeping games, more about competition, more about dominance, more about alpha male, more about all that. Girls are about being nice. You don't keep score. Everybody gets a turn, all of that kind of stuff. And so we bring those with us. So we're still taking turns and making sure everybody's okay. And then the last one that I think is probably the most, it's just startling, is called the accumulation of disadvantage. And this is where organizations have to be really smart. And many of them are. The whole sunshine, thinking around making things visible instead of it's all secret in the back room, where we're deciding. But here's the example I'll walk you through. A man and a woman come out of college. They have similar majors, extracurriculars, GPAs, grade point averages, all that kind of stuff. So they look pretty similar on paper. The starting salary for the job they're both going after is, let's just say, $35,000 a year. And what happens is men on average negotiate about another 4.5% above that 35,000, women about 2.5%. So when you just apply those numbers, it's only about a $500 annual difference. That's not exactly specific, but directionally correct. I don't want to go through the point blah, blah, blahs. But the reality is no one would notice that. In my corporate world, I started the compensation department at EDS and I ran it a couple of different times. And I've worked with other organizations in my current entrepreneurial business doing those kinds of things. Nobody would pay attention. It would be a rounding error. But what happens, the accumulation of disadvantage, if you extrapolate 4.5% and 2.5%, by the time they're 65, which is, often a retirement age, he's making $212,000 and she's making $110,000. So when you start adding that up over time, you now begin to understand why we make 89 cents on the dollar or 57 cents or 42 cents or whatever it has been. So again, if we want it to be different, we have to ask for it different. And here's what I tell people. Always know your market value for the job that you have and the job that you're going after.
And there's plenty of sources now to identify that, right?
That's right.
It's not a mystery anymore.
And you're not comparing yourself to another person. You're comparing yourself to market data. That makes it, she's too emotional. Takes that out of the equation.
Yeah.
You also can scare your boss because you're smart about it. And that makes them sit up and listen. So know your market value. You can never overcome a low starting salary. So if you're in a job interview, here's what you do. And they say, what are your compensation expectations? Here's the language I teach to women. I know that the market value for this job is, let's just say, $125,000 to $175,000 a year. Based on my track record of experience and results, I would expect to be paid at the high end of that range. And then they're going to ask you, well, what do you make now? And here's what you say to them. It doesn't matter what I make now. I know the market value of that job, and that's what my expectations are. Now, I have to decide, am I going to walk away from a job because they don't pay me at the high end, or will they at least start me at the mid? But here's what often happens. We get the promise of it'll come, and it never comes. And it never comes because the economy gets bad or that boss is gone and it's nowhere on the record. So you got to start over with me, the new boss. And that's why when you agree to something that is lesser than what you want to follow that up with an email and you want to send it to the HR department as well as your boss, because now you have a record of, they told me they would look at this again in 6 months. And if my performance warranted, I would get the increase. And so all of that is critically important for me to improve my financial security, because that 110,000, basically half, that impacts if you're in a bonus program where it's a percentage of bonus, if you're contributing to the Social Security system in America, all of that is impacted. So the accumulation is not just year over year; it's on all the ancillary things that are based on, what your salary is.
Stock program and all that stuff, so it gets all impacted.
All that.